Hello and welcome to yet another video. Today we're going to be doing a clock face, which will help the children to learn how to tell the time on a clock and not digitally, as a lot of children are learning these days with computers and watches that are digital. There is still a call for the old-fashioned analog clock and being able to tell the time with a clock. So this is a design I've designed with that in mind, to help children learn the quarter to, quarter past, half past, 5 past, 10 past. And I'm very aware that a lot of people have 4x4 hoops and don't have the availability for the bigger hoops. So my first priority was to design this design so it could be done in a 4x4 hoop. So there'll be 4 hoopings in total to make this clock. Each hooping will contain roughly a quarter of the clock's face. The other thing you will need to be able to complete it will be a sewing machine to put the back on. You could of course use heat and bond adhesive interfacing, cut out to the shape and iron it on that way. That would be one way of doing it. And because I'm aware that this edging could fray if you're doing it with cotton or material, I've decided that the best way would be to use felt. So I have a piece of felt for the backing, a piece of felt for the front, and a piece of vinyl for the hands, for the clock hands. Now you can use any material that you like, but I suggest you use something that's non-fraying. You can maybe try it on craft text fabric, cork even, maybe. The choice is up to you. But what we need is a 4x4 hoop, stabilised with tearaway stabiliser, the piece of felt for embroidering on and a piece of felt for the backing, plus the vinyl for the hands. So the first thing we do is to load your embroidery machine with the first file, which will be clock face 1, which will be the first quarter of the design. So here's the first step. You will get fully pictured PDF instructions with the file, so it will go over each step, plus there will be a link to this video in the instructions. As you see, the first step is stitching a guideline. This is to just show us where we need the fabric to cover. The fabric's going to need to cover this line, okay, plus extra. The measurements for the fabric or the felt will be in the PDF. Now this needs to go so that we've got enough showing here, enough showing here, enough showing here. But one thing that I think is a good thing to do is to fold the felt or the fabric into quarters. This will help you ensure that you've got enough to go over this quarter and be enough for the others as well. So we carefully unfold it. We know that that's going to be fine. Unfold it here. Okay. I will use tape here. I do very often use pins to hold it in place, but as the felt is quite near the line, this is a smallish piece of felt. I'm going to take that piece of tape here. And a piece of tape here. Okay. I'm going to take this to the machine. You could, if you want, use a pin here because it's going to be well out of the way of the stitching. Down here you'll be well out of the way, we'll just use a pin to hold that in place here, and another pin down in this corner here. Okay, so we'll take it to the machine and do the next designs. Now each step is programmed with a colour stop change. You can change the colour as often as you like, or you can keep all to the same colour. For this demonstration I'm going to be keeping to the same colour all the way through on the clock face, but you can change the colour if you want a different outline colour for the outline, a different colour for the number, a different colour for the text. That's your choice completely. Second step done, the numbers have been stitched. Now the next step will be to do the border around the outside. Again, you could change colour here or keep to the same colour. I'm going to keep to the same colour. Clock border has now been stitched. Next we're going to stitch some wording here and here. And there are a little circle here which denotes the centre point and where we'll be placing the clock hands. Okay, so I've now done the lettering, 2:15 and o'clock here, and the little circle here. Normally I would do this in the same colour as the fabric you're using, but I've done it in the green so that you can see it. This will be a guide as to where the pin goes for the hands. I've also gone ahead and stitched the neck, these lines here. These are the guidelines, the reference line for lining up the next piece, and they are important. They're done in a longer stitch so they'll be easily to take out when we finished the item. So now that this section is finished, we load the next file into the embroidery machine, which is clock face 2. We're going to unhoop this from the hoop. We're going to take the tearaway off around here and just down around the inside here. So here's the clock face unhooped. As you can see, we remove the stabilizer from here, and just here, just the other side of the registration lines. We're hooped and ready to go for the second part. So take this over to the machine and do the second part, which will give me a guideline here for reference number so that we can line up the clock face and the exterior curve. Okay, so here we have the first steps stitched of the second clock face. We have the alignment line here and we have the curve here. For this method to line it perfectly, I use these drawing pins. I found this very successful. But the most important thing is to remember to remove them before you start stitching. Now what we do here is we turn the hoop over. It's difficult to see in this light, but at the very end of the registration line we put a drawing pin in there, and we put one in there. We turn it over, oops, keeping them in place. So we have the two drawing pins in place, as you can see here and here. Now we bring over our last piece that we stitched, and we carefully find the end of the alignment part there and stick that in the hole at the end of there, and we bring this one, whoops, sometimes it tends to pop out, whoops, there we go, that one's in place. And then we bring this one over, line it up with the second one. So he's moved again, he popped out again. There, so we keep this down and in place. Now we can see that the curve is here. I'm going to use a pin, again, just to pin this in place. Make sure you just smooth this down flat. Pin this in place here. We know this is going to be well away from the stitching area. Oh, it's moved. Be very careful. The felt does tend to pop off a bit. If it does move, just line it back up again. And we need to stick a pin in down the bottom to hold it in place, or a piece of tape across the top while we're putting that in. Just seem to want to pop up from there. Let's just stick that in there. That's nice and smooth, nice and flat. We'll stick a pin in here, down the bottom. Oops, there he goes. Out he comes again. As you can see, we now have it lined up perfectly. The two pins there in the end. I have this pin down so it doesn't shift. I think the problem with felt is, or this particular felt that I'm using here, I'm trying to use up some scraps, is a bit stretchy and it keeps wanting to move. But here we have it lined up. We're going to take it to the machine, but before we do take it to the machine, do remember, take these out. Don't leave these in, because if the machine hits it, you've messed up your machine. So those are now out of the way. We'll take it to the machine and we'll go through the same steps as before. First it will be the numbers, then it will be the border, then it'll be any writing if there's writing to do, which there will be on this side, and then on more alignment registration lines across here to line up the next section. Just wanted to show you this before we go on to the next step. I've stitched the numbers. The next step on this file is to stitch the quarter past. Now what I do suggest is we've got a couple of stitches here that if we stitch the writing straight on top of this, they're going to be underneath and could be a bit difficult to take out afterwards. So I just suggest with a quick unpick, you just snip a couple of those stitches there. There, as you can see, we've got a gap here now of no stitches, so that when we do the quarter past, this won't be in underneath. Alright, so here we have this part finished for the moment, but just a word of warning. As you can see, this felt was it's an old piece of felt I had, a scrap that I wanted to use up, so it's a bit more stretchier than my normal felt that I would have used. Though, so up here where it moved a bit, it's not quite lining up, but I can assure you it does, so be careful when you're choosing your product to use that it's not too stretchy. This is one I tried on fabric, and as you can see, perfect alignment, no gaps, absolutely perfect. So do be aware of that with the fabric that you choose. Now we're not finished here yet with this file. I don't like waste and I hate to waste stabiliser. So what we're going to do now is we're going to just trim this a little bit close to the edge here, around here, because the next step is we're going to do one of the clock hands, which will be stitched out here. So very carefully bring it down about here. Not too close to the edge, because it depends on how you're going to finish it, whether you're going to sew fabric to the back of it, whether you're going to use, as I suggested, a Heat and Bond Ultra or a Heat and Bond Light to fuse the two pieces of felt together. Just trim that off around there. So the next step we're going to do is going to be the placement stitch for the hands.